Hello, my friends. Here I am, and I've got a great conversation with Glenn Kirschner joining me today. We caught up yesterday live. Did you see it on the YouTube? You subscribe, youtube.com/standupwithpete. But I've got a little bit of headlines and a couple clips for you. First, I'm still kind of on hiatus with the news segment, but a few things I wanted to mention. Hope to see you at tomorrow night's hangout. There will be a hangout tomorrow night. Trying to get my life back together, but struggling a bit. I'll tell you all about it at tomorrow night's hangout. But I have a great conversation with Glenn Kirschner, and let's get to the headlines from yesterday, because I do try to do that for you each and every day. I think one of the biggest headlines and most important headlines may be going a little underreported. I mean, it's in most of the major news outlets, but still not being talked about enough because, you know, Trump's cheating at golf and admitting that he knew certain things about Epstein for the first time. It's really crazy what is happening. But yesterday, the head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, said the Trump administration would revoke the legal basis behind the government's authority to combat climate change. That's right. The EPA called for an end to its climate regulations. And so I feel like that's a huge story that needs more discussion, and hopefully I will have it here and with you. Also wanted to mention a UN-backed food security group said the worst-case scenario of famine is playing out in Gaza. And I got to tell you, if you're not affected by that, I wonder why. Are you paying attention to it? If you are paying attention to it and you are affected by it, you are definitely not alone. Watching this situation play out and people starving in Gaza is hard to kind of understand. I mean, you might be going about your day and realizing, well, maybe the reason why I'm feeling off or terrible is because what is happening right now with starving children in Gaza. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is upset about it. That's how you know that it's bad. She became the first Republican in Congress to say that a genocide is underway in Gaza. So, I don't know, consider the source. Satellite images showing hundreds of Palestinians converging on an aid convoy. It's just unfathomable, and I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm very upset about that, and I'm sure that many of you are too. And let's just acknowledge that it is affecting you. Also, tariffs. The U.S. and China agreed to continue talks on extending a trade truce, but did not reach an immediate deal after 2 days of negotiations. The railroads, Union Pacific, announced that it had reached an agreement to buy Norfolk Southern for $85 billion, which would create the first coast-to-coast freight rail network in the U.S. In Ukraine, a Russian strike on a prison in Ukraine's south part of a wave directed at 73 cities and villages killed at least 16 people. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. announced a plan to restrict the use of some kratom products. Federal officials said a psychoactive ingredient in kratom had been refined and added to supplements that could quickly become addictive. RFK Jr. also doing a whole bunch of other crazy things. Former Trump lawyer Emil Bove has been confirmed to an appeals court despite whistleblower claims. I talk about that with Glenn Kirschner coming up, even though we talked a little bit before the confirmation came through. But that's very bad news. He's a terrible, terrible person. Whole bunch of shootings, including in Reno, Nevada, and in New York City. The details, I'm sure you've read about that. New evidence that Trump is pushing prices higher. Procter & Gamble yesterday forecast annual results largely below estimates and said it would raise prices on some products in the U.S. a day after naming an insider as a CEO to steer it through tariff uncertainty. And remember when Trump said the North Korean threat was over? Well, North Korea said yesterday that while the relationship between its leader and ours is not bad, that the United States must accept the isolated country as a nuclear weapons state, dismissing the idea of further talks on denuclearization. Kim Jong-un's powerful sister said that reality has changed since Trump's first term in office, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean. And in a case worth watching, a coalition of 20 state attorneys general filed a lawsuit Monday challenging the Trump administration's demand that their states overturn personal data of people enrolled in a federally funded food assistance program, fearing the information will be used to aid mass deportations. So they're trying to find people who are undocumented that are somehow getting SNAP food, and they want to deport them, in case you haven't been paying attention to that. And I thought this was really weird. The Trump administration announced yesterday that workplace rules that stand to make it easier for federal employees to pressure their colleagues to convert to the religion of their choice. Bizarre story and headline yesterday, but Yeah, Washington Post reporting that Trump's director of Office of Personnel Management, a guy named Scott Kapoor, sent out new guidance to employees encouraging them to talk about religion in the workplace. Quote, employees may engage in conversations regarding religious topics with fellow employees, including attempting to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious views, provided that such efforts are not harassing in nature. Employees may also encourage their coworkers to participate in religious expressions of faith, such as prayer, to the same extent that they would be permitted to encourage coworkers to participate in other personal activities. What the hell is that all about? Why are they doing that? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like any of the things that I just mentioned here in today's headline section, but that is what it's for, in case you missed any of it. And the world's biggest earthquake took place while you were sleeping in 14 years, a massive 8.8 on a Russian island, and tsunami alerts in America's West Coast and between here and there everywhere. So terrible or scary news on the tsunami earthquake front. All right, those are the headlines that I've got for you. And now time for a couple of clips that I grabbed. And guess what? Today's clips are just the comedians. Just some laughs. How about it? Let's start with Colbert on Monday night. He's very, very much on fire.
Trump must have left his boombox at home because while appearing with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he was once again asked about Epstein.
By the way, I never went to the island. I never had the privilege of going to his island.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what? What? You never had the privilege of going to Epstein's island? Sadly, I never had the honor of dining with Jeffrey Dahmer. It just... Trump also explained why he parted ways with Epstein.
For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate.
Finally, some moral backbone. He did something inappropriate, and that was?
He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me.
Sorry, Jeff, underage sex trafficking is one thing, but I draw the line at you stealing my omelet man, okay? He's the only one who knows I like ham. On Thursday and Friday of last week, something totally normal happened. Trump sent his Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who also happened to be his personal defense attorney during the Stormy Daniels trial, to interview Epstein's convicted co-conspirator and Trump's double-date partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell is now serving a 20-year sentence for assisting, facilitating, and participating in Epstein's sexual abuse of minors for over a decade. Now, we don't know what happened during this meeting because as far as we've been told, the only people in there were Maxwell's lawyer, the convicted sex trafficker, and the president's personal sex lawyer. To make it even more normal, after the second meeting, Maxwell was seen carrying this box. Nothing suspicious about that. I'm sure they give all convicted sex traffickers with a decades-long connection to Donald Trump a box. She got a box. Epstein got a box. Hers was cardboard. His was pine. All perfectly normal. Now, oh, hi. Oh, hey, there was some big news from the world of entertainment this weekend because according to this Fox News headline, Trump's FCC approved the Paramount Skydance merger following the $16 million Trump settlement and Colbert's cancellation. I'm canceled? What? And I'm being told I already knew that, but I spent the weekend huffing airplane glue?
All right, that's good. We'll come back to Colbert from last night. That was Monday night. But here is Jon Stewart on The Daily Show Monday night.
But let's begin tonight with a young man by the name of Donald Aloysius Trump. As you know, this young man has been embroiled in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking scandal and did what anybody who is innocent when facing an accusation of this type, did what anybody who was innocent would do. He fled the country. He fled the country, taking a jaunt to bonny old Scotland. That's probably not the right accent. to leave his troubles in the United States behind and finally gain an ocean's distance between himself and the Epstein scandal and focus on his new trade deal with the EU. I'm sorry, yes, you there, from the Inverness Castle Times.
Mr. President, was part of the rush to get this deal done to knock the Jeffrey Epstein story out?
Oh, you got to be kidding with that.
Donald Trump, he's all like, how did you even hear about it? I thought you guys just got Baywatch like 3 months ago. Doesn't anybody here have a question about this trade deal sinking both of our economies with tariffs? How high do I have to make the tariffs before you guys shut the up about Epstein? But of course, how do you expect the media to move on when even Trump has trouble doing so? And so it was, on the day of striking a trade deal with the EU, Donald Trump presented once more, this time for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, his classic Epstein defense, 13 reasons why I'm not involved with a pedophile.
Those files were run by the worst scum on earth. If they had something, they would have released. Now, they can easily put something in the files that's a phony.
Which is why I can't release it. It's simple. If I, Donald Trump, was in the files, they would have released it. So clearly I'm not in the files, but of course, I'm clearly in the files.
Yes, he is so clearly in the files. Nothing could be more true or prescient or obvious. All right, let's go to Seth Meyers on Late Night with Seth Meyers, where he did a parody of asking questions to White House spokeswoman and lady who married a man like 30 years older than her, Caroline Leavitt, and I just thought this was pretty funny the way that they edited this together on Late Night with Seth Meyers.
It's time for the Late Night White House press briefing. Yes, thank you. Seth Meyers, Late Night with Seth Meyers. Caroline, tariffs have thrown the economy into chaos. Billions in funding for Medicaid recipients is being cut, and now Republicans are shutting down Congress to avoid a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Are you doing anything we can be excited about?
You don't need to take off your shoes anymore at the airport?
It's actually pretty good. Different question. Who is Trump going to throw under the bus to try and make the Epstein stuff go away?
His own son, Donald Trump Jr.
All right. Same name. It will work with the list. All right. Since Trump became president, what has he sold on his website?
$9 billion worth of crap.
Caroline, what's something that sounds like a good idea on paper but really isn't?
The president who was a businessman first.
I heard that your phone just died. Why didn't you put your charger into one of the plugs backstage?
These are partisan, left-wing outlets.
Caroline, where has Rudy Giuliani been living since he lost his New York City apartment?
Isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife in unforgiving terrain.
We wish him the best.
All right, I like that bit. And now let's go back to Colbert. This is from last night's monologue.
Folks, I read once that if you're a passenger in an auto accident, it helps if you're just a little drunk. Because, and this evidence, the science backs this up, if a drunk passenger is a little loose, and if you're a little looser, you're less likely to get severely injured than if you were to tense up right before impact. Which brings me to our president. I think at this point, it would help if we were all just a little drunk, because maybe then, maybe then it wouldn't be so painful when he drives the world into a telephone pole. And here's what I mean. Look, we all know that he's crazy, but some of the crazy stuff is just to distract us from the crazier stuff. And maybe we should stop trying to stop every crazy, because stopping some of the crazy makes the crazy stuff seem less crazy than he could possibly craze. And let's face it. Let's face it, if you think we're going to stop all the crazy, you cray-cray. The latest case in cuckoo, some House Republican, I don't know who it is, just introduced a bill to rename the Kennedy Center to the Donald J. Trump Center for the Performing Arts. I'm sensing you don't like that. Clearly, you are not eager to see Kid Rock dance the Nutcracker, but the bill's sponsor says that Trump is a patron of the arts and a staple of the pop culture landscape. I'm sorry, but it's true. Trump is a staple of pop culture. Just last week, he was great on South Park. Now, amazing, huh? Yeah. So daring. Breakout role. So free and open with his body. Now, while it's true that 2 months after Kennedy's 1963 assassination, Congress passed legislation renaming the National Cultural Center as a living memorial to Kennedy, that was a long time ago. You know what they say about those who forget the past? They name stuff after Donald Trump. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and rename everything. The Washington Monument will become My Big Pointy Penis. And the Grand Canyon will become Donald's Gaping Hole.
All right, just a few jokes from the late night comedians to get you started. A little bit of an abbreviated clip show, trying to keep it light and with levity. Light and with levity? I don't know. All right, let's get to my conversation now with Glenn Kirschner, who, of course, hosts the Justice Matters channel on YouTube, and you should follow him on Substack. Of course, he was at MSNBC before that, but his main gig was 30 years as a former federal prosecutor, and he's so good at explaining all of it. Very good friend of mine. We love Glenn Kirschner. Anytime he joins us, you can watch this on YouTube at youtube.com/standupwithpete. Let's do it right now with the Kirschner Report. It's time for a conversation with Glenn Kirschner.
Well, I have a lot of things to ask you. I don't understand a lot of things, which is why I called you. First of all, Emil Bove, he seems like a very bad person, and he's about to get to confirm to a very important decision. And then if he does, it means like really bad things in terms of the precedent it sets. Can you explain to me what if you agree with that and why it matters?
Yeah, Emil Bove is disqualified several times over from ever being a federal court judge, a judge of any kind, traffic court judge. You know, he is the one who orchestrated the dirty deal with Mayor Eric Adams of New York. Pete, I can't tell you how unethical it is, how it makes career prosecutors basically throw up in our mouths every time we think about it. When you leverage a criminal prosecution for a political favor, you don't say, look, Judge, we've got the goods on Eric Adams. We can convict him. We can prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But we want him to do a favor, though, for our boss, the President of the United States. We want to help him. We want him to help the president with his immigration and deportation priorities. So we want to dismiss his criminal case. That's insanity. I mean, in no rational practice of the law is that okay to do. I mean, and it's intuitive, right? You don't have to be a lawyer to understand.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a gross abuse of the power of a prosecutor.
It sounds like the kind of thing that happens in bad places.
Yeah. In places where you don't even pretend to have a legitimate government or Department of Justice. So, that's for openers. And then when he was on his rampage, working his way through the public integrity section at the Department of Justice, telling people in there, the career lawyers, somebody's going to sign this damn dirty dismissal motion in the Eric Adams case, or there's going to be hell to pay. Again, that is not the way you go about supervising federal prosecutors. I know, because I supervised federal prosecutors for a very long time at DOJ. And then the icing on the unethical cake is when can I cuss?
Of course, please.
Is when he said, you know what, we're going to deport people the way we want to deport them, and fuck court orders trying to stop us. And yes, I believe the whistleblower as corroborated by email traffic. And that, Pete, putting somebody on the federal bench to issue court orders who directed federal prosecutors to, quote, fuck court orders, we'll do what we want. That would be like taking, a doctor making him chief of surgery, and he directed his doctors underneath him to just go in and kill the patients. Fuck the patients. I mean, it is just that dramatically bad to have a guy like that be a federal judge with life tenure. I mean, will it happen with this Republican Party? Who the hell knows?
It looks like he's got the votes, right? I mean, he's a nominee to serve as a federal judge, United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. What is that circuit? What does that mean? How much power do they have? I mean, there's not that many circuit court judges, are there? There's how many?
No, well, there are 13 federal judicial circuits, but this, among other states, this would cover criminal prosecutions in New York. And let's face it, the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office often gets the most important, most high-profile, most serious criminal prosecutions. So he would have his hands in the mix as one of the appellate court judges. Now, the good news is he would only be one of about a dozen appellate court judges, and I have to believe he would be shunned because I can't imagine there's a federal judge in our nation who looks at this dude and said, he's got the right stuff to be a federal court judge. But listen, this is probably a fast track for him to the Supreme Court where he can do extraordinary damage.
Oh. Huh. Well, just to be clear, though, I guess I read something that said if he's nominated, it means federal courts. It's some kind of very kind of hyperbolic statement that seemed very scary, but I mean, if he would be one of 13 judges and he was going to be shunned, I mean, he doesn't really seem to have that much power. He's totally unqualified, totally corrupt. He's a terrible person, but I'm not sure how much of a consequence he would have on a court where that many other judges would probably be voting against him.
Yeah, well, so here's where, when I say shunned, that's my interpretation, because I can't imagine a self-respecting federal court judge would believe he was qualified, right? He has any business donning a black robe. But he will be part of a 3-judge panel because when a criminal conviction is appealed to a federal circuit court of appeals, it's a 3-judge panel that hears the appeal. So he'll be one of 3. And so, you can do some damage as one of 3 judges on a panel deciding cases day in and day out. But yes, it's not like, he is a judge who will be making any decisions exclusively on his own. So there is some cushion against his, unethical behavior and his illegality.
There's news today that from a whistleblower that he misled lawmakers about this New York City mayor case with Eric Adams. I mean, I don't know if you heard about that whistleblower news yet, but I mean, we knew this already. We knew that's exactly what he's doing. As you just said, that was the deal that he was making. He was trying to make at least.
It was open and notorious. The corruption and the unethical conduct was open and notorious. So I will catch up on the latest reporting. This is just more of the same with a guy like Emil Bove.
Do you know when this Senate is expected to vote on him? I'm trying to look it up.
I don't know. He came out of committee about a week ago, and I don't know if they've set the floor of the full Senate vote yet. I haven't heard if they have.
Okay, so wanted to ask you certainly about that guy. I also have to ask you about another particular lawyer named Todd Blanche, who is playing a really key role now in this whole Epstein craziness. You've done a lot of really good informative videos and other interviews about this, but he was Trump's criminal defense attorney. I guess he's a pretty good lawyer, and I'm not sure which cases he worked on for Trump, but now he is what and why is that important? And also, more importantly, everybody said this has never happened. You would never send a guy of this rank, a deputy attorney general, to question a witness. So I'm really interested in what that's all about.
Yeah, let me talk about Todd Blanche. But just if I back it up a little bit, when I hear Donald Trump spouting off his nonsense on cable news, which they gave him about an hour to do it uninterrupted and unfact-checked yesterday, which still drives me to distraction, which is why I'm so happy to be independent from corporate media 100% at this point. But when he says stuff like Trump, this whole, Epstein and Maxwell thing was an orchestration. It's a hoax cooked up by the Democrats. Pete, let me start with this, and then we're going to go to Todd Blanche.
Sure.
Jeffrey Epstein was indicted in 2019 by Donald Trump's DOJ as headed up by Bill Barr. Ghislaine Maxwell was indicted in 2020 by Donald Trump's DOJ headed up by Bill Barr. And now Donald Trump is saying, oh, these cases against these two were hoaxes by the Democrats. So, yeah, what, you took all the evidence that was in the Democrat hoax investigation and you used it to indict these people? I mean, the gaslighting is just, it's insane. Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney for an extended period of time, including representing him in the New York criminal prosecution, where Todd didn't perform so good because Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies in a New York minute. That jury barely had time for a cup of coffee when they went back to deliberate. They banged him out, 34 felony convictions. Good work, Todd. Heck of a job, Toddy. So here's the thing, Pete. When you're a criminal defense attorney and you have an extended relationship with the client, you are the keeper of your client's secrets and confidences and incriminating evidence and information. In a good attorney-client relationship, the client has to unburden himself or herself of what they did. So there are no surprises when the defense attorney goes into court and tries to defend against the charges. And the fact that Todd Blanche is the keeper of Donald Trump's secrets, including incriminating secrets, he must keep that confidence forever, because the attorney-client privilege does not end when the relationship between attorney and client ends. So he's still keeping Donald Trump's incriminating secrets. He is not, and he is also now the number 2 guy at the Department of Justice, a political appointee. He's not a line attorney who goes into jail cells, as I did for decades, or secure interview rooms and interviews people like Ghislaine Maxwell. Not that there are many people who did the kind of horrific things that she did, right, grooming underage girls by the hundreds and hundreds for Epstein and lots of other people who have never been held accountable. I would surmise Epstein didn't groom them all for his own benefit. Right. So here is the only person that is equipped to sit down across the table from Ghislaine Maxwell and assess whether what she is spewing out is truthful or is a bunch of bullshit designed to cover up the crimes of Donald Trump, if she's aware of crimes by Donald Trump. It is the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, because that's the person, Pete, who knows where all of the bodies are buried. She, because it's a she in this instance, the lead prosecutor, she knows whether Ghislaine Maxwell is telling the truth or lying when she is questioned by prosecutors. Now, who was the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell case? It was Maureen Comey. Yeah. Yes, former FBI director James Comey's daughter. But here's the thing, Pete. She has been a longtime Department of Justice prosecutor for about a decade. For the first 6 months of Donald Trump's reign of terror, his tenure as president, she was a prosecutor at the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, and she was apparently just humming along in the job. And a week before Todd Blanche says, I will go talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, they fire Maureen Comey.
Would Maureen Comey be the person, because she prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell, to go and talk to her if there were new information?
Yes. And yes, because let me tell you, I tried to bring defendants on board if I thought they could give me bigger criminal fish. But if they wanted their trial, I looked them in the eye and I said, okay, I'm going to give you your trial. But once I convict you, I'm going to come back and we're going to talk again. I have brought people on board as cooperating witnesses after I convicted them of murder, because I always wanted to keep my eye on the ball and go after the bigger criminal fish. So this is not unusual. What is unusual is it feels to me like Todd Blanche went and talked for 9 hours to Ghislaine Maxwell to make sure she would cover up Donald Trump's crimes, not expose.
Well,
Donald
that would
Trump's
be what
crimes.
It seems to be. We will never know, is my guess. But the other thing I think I heard on somewhere, a legal analyst talking about it, that generally speaking, if you, Glenn Kirschner, were the prosecutor or the line prosecutor going to talk to the witness, or in this case, the convicted person, right? What do we call
Defendant.
her? The defendant. You would have a third party. Like the fact that this is really important, my understanding at least, Todd Blanche is talking to her privately with no other person to record this conversation. And
well, I don't know that. I haven't seen reporting on that. Let me tell you.
I think I heard that on Face the Nation on CBS with Margaret Brennan. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Pete, it's a cardinal sin for prosecutors to ever speak with a witness, with a defendant, with an aspiring cooperator, without a law enforcement agent right there documenting everything that person says, because then I, as the prosecutor, am protected against allegations that you promised this witness or this defendant something and you haven't disclosed that to the defense. I thought it was interesting that we saw a letter yesterday jointly authored by Senator Whitehouse and Senator Durbin saying we demand the release of the 9 hours of Ghislaine Maxwell recordings that Todd Blanche should have made during his interview with her. Now, let's see if he says, I didn't record it. I just took notes. Take my word for it. But if he didn't bring an FBI agent, frankly, multiple FBI agents in there with him to accurately document what she said, that will be, I think, damn near conclusive proof that the whole damn thing is a cover-up.
It certainly looks like that. But, I mean, don't you think that the most obvious conclusion, and let's just predict the game here, is that there could be a deal for some version of freedom for her, for names. The names will likely be Democrats or liberal men or maybe others as well, but just not anything to do with Donald Trump because he only cares about himself. She gets freedom, and he gets this perfect narrative and looks heroic even though he himself likely raped or otherwise sexually assaulted several underage women.
So what I expect Todd Blanche to say, other than, whoops, I didn't record the interview so anybody could hear for themselves what Ghislaine Maxwell told me, is Ghislaine Maxwell said Donald Trump is pure as the driven snow. He never did anything wrong with Jeffrey Epstein or anyone else as far as she's aware, but a whole bunch of Democrats did. And then the first question will be, if that's what's in the Epstein files, you, Pam Bondi, would have released it on day one. So we're not that gullible.
Right. Well, a lot of us are, probably. That's just interesting. I mean, the narrative now is being formed, and I want you to debunk this real quick, apparently, that Ghislaine Maxwell is potentially a victim here. Isn't it true that she groomed hundreds, if not thousands, of underage women, or some people would call them children? And isn't it true that she also participated in the actual assault herself? She recruited them. She groomed them. She may have assaulted them. She's a really bad person, or those are very bad crimes. And so to give her a pardon or for what? For what would happen? I mean, what do we get?
To protect the president. To protect the president.
But what does the public get? It wouldn't be, he would have to tell us that she did something for us, that she gave them what information? I mean, they already have this information, no?
If we weren't living in the legal upside down, you're exactly right, Pete. You don't reward somebody who provides information to the government unless it is truthful, accurate information that helps you hold others accountable for their crimes. And when you said she committed all these crimes, don't take our word for it. Take the word of a jury of her peers who convicted her of 6 felonies involving conspiracy with Jeffrey Epstein and sex trafficking of young girls. So, she should get exactly nothing. Not a pardon, not a sentence commutation, not a Rule 35 reduction in her sentence. Nothing, unless she comes clean. She says, okay, let me give you the 100 people truthfully. And we would have to have evidence that corroborates what she says. Anytime you sit down with somebody like this, the 3 most important words are corroboration, corroboration, and corroboration. You need outside independent evidence, emails and text messages and cell site information, other witnesses, surveillance photos, videotapes to prove that what she says is true.
She can't just say Bill Clinton raped 9 women without there being some corroboration. But by the way, isn't some of the corroboration in the files? When people talk about the Epstein files, I think it's just important to say some say that, there is no list. It's all a myth. And I think a lot of it is a conspiracy. But also, any court case, any criminal case has thousands of documents. So what we're talking about here are probably witness testimonies. There are thousands of documents as a result of the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Those are under lock and key, like plenty of other legal documents, right?
Documents, videotapes, DVDs. There's been some reporting. I mean, they raided Epstein's Island. They raided Epstein's mansion in New York. They have probably storage rooms full of evidence that constitutes the Epstein files. And, if Ghislaine Maxwell starts making claims about who did what, well, then they ought to be corroborated by the Epstein files, which, of course, we're probably never going to see.
Just real quick, do you think that this issue, her potential pardon or commutation, could happen? I mean, I guess your guess is as good as everybody else's. I'm guessing, what would it mean if the president, I guess, again, your guess is as good as the rest of us on that, right? That's not your expertise necessarily, but
can you imagine with the way Donald Trump wields the pardon power, and given that the Supreme Court has said that's a core constitutional function, he can sell pardons for his own self-enrichment if he wants, and he can't be prosecuted. I frankly suspect he will give her a pardon to make sure he can craft her story in a way that it doesn't incriminate him.
I was on CNN. I didn't really know the best answer to this, and I should. I think I know one, but what is the best answer to why, if Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, why didn't the Biden administration release them? What is the answer to that?
Because the Biden administration did not run on, we promise you that a lot of pedophiles in there. We're going to release it. We're going to release it. We're going to release it. I mean, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all these people are saying this kind of stuff. And now it's coming back to haunt them because the MAGA base are like, okay, now where is it? You promised it to us. And even Pam Bondi in February, when she was asked point blank, what about the Epstein client list? She said, it is on my desk for review, until a couple of months later, she said, it doesn't exist. Again, how foolish are we? So what was your question? I got off.
Why didn't the Biden administration release the files? But no, you answered
because, Pete, we're not in the business at the Department of Justice in just releasing investigative files. We're in the business of investigating, seeing if the evidence supports a criminal conviction, going to trial, and whatever we introduce publicly during the course of a trial becomes the public record that we release. So, no, we don't just willy-nilly, even if it might hurt our political opponents, we don't just willy-nilly release criminal files. But Trump and company have been promising it for so long, and now some of the claims they're making can be answered by those files. So, okay, put up or shut up.
Last question for you. How are federal courts holding up? You had a video over on YouTube, Justice Matters, and everybody should be watching all of Glenn's videos, subscribing to him on Substack, but talking about a few cases that went the way of justice, if you will. So, but my question is, are federal courts able to do anything based on what recently the Supreme Court decided in June, much less, who the makeup of those federal courts?
Yeah, federal courts are holding strong. And by that, I mean the federal trial court judges and the federal circuit courts of appeals judges. Everybody instantly says, but the Supreme Court. And I'm with you. But the Supreme Court, those 6 radical right-wing justices who seem forever, willing to expand Donald Trump's power, even though he is wielding it unlawfully and unconstitutionally. But, the federal courts have been holding strong. There were 3 on Friday. There were 3 losses for Trump within 24 hours, significant losses. And so the courts will continue to hold strong. There was a great deep dive piece in the Washington Post a few days ago cataloging all of the cases in which Donald Trump's dirty DOJ lawyers are defying court orders or delaying court orders or making misrepresentations to federal court judges, and they are being caught. I commend that deep dive Washington Post article. It was July 21st to everybody. But, the courts are only as strong as they can enforce their orders if the Trump administration just begins to openly defy them and say, look, I don't really care what the Supreme Court says anymore. We're going to do what we damn well please. That, in my opinion, Pete, is the moment he becomes an illegitimate president of the United States, because that will be an announcement that he is no longer willing to abide by our constitutional construct of government. And that's when he calls the military in to try to keep him in power. And as an old Army guy, active duty, that is when we have a responsibility to disobey unlawful orders.
And hasn't that already passed that threshold? Has he not defied court orders already? In the way that you described?
He has delayed. He has flirted with defying them. Sometimes he defies them and he comes into compliance. One example is when, the courts ruled that his cutting all Department of Education funding off was unlawful. What just happened? And everybody should take heart and view this as a point of light. A few days ago, 10 Republican senators said, hey, sport. They didn't call him sport, but I call him sport. Release the damn DOE funds, including to my state. And he did. He relented. And coincidentally, that was complying with a court order that what he was doing was illegal. So, and they did that again with the NIH grant money. So right now, some of the Republicans are standing up to him occasionally, and he's backing down. That's important because I think the more often the Republicans can stand up to him, the more likely they are to keep standing up to him. Right. So all hope is not lost, but we're still living in the Trump-induced darkness looking for those points of light.
You're doing a great job at showing us them when they exist, and I appreciate you doing it here with me, as always. Thank you, sir. You're dismissed.
Great seeing you.
Justice Matters, Glenn Kirschner.
Yes,
Thank you very much, my friend. Yeah. By the way, go listen to his interview with Mo Davis. That was awesome. Glad you did that. Yeah. Love him. He's running for Congress. All right. Glenn Kirschner, everybody. There he goes.
Take care, Pete.
All right. There goes Glenn Kirschner. Go subscribe if you're not already one of the over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and on Substack and on all of the rest. Let him know that you heard him here on the show. Maybe he'll see it. Always appreciate it. Glenn is always good to me, and I like to think I feel the same way, am the same way for him as all of you are for me. Thank you so much for your support and your patience while I take a little bit of time to try to sort things out in my life this week. And we'll be back with the full show next week or earlier. I'm not sure exactly what's happening. It's all up in the air. It's all up in the air, but you guys have been amazing. Thank you very much for all your kind words and support. And now I hope to see you tomorrow night at our hangout. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and you can watch today at around 3 p.m. East. I should be talking to my friend Sam Youngman. Always great. Just a little heads up on that for you bumblebees here at the end. John Carroll taking us out right now.
Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye.